The scene opens with a quiet moment that says everything. MelodyShari, once the woman holding her family and brand together in Huntsville, now stands before a new horizon in Atlanta. The air feels different here, full of promise, but also heavy with the weight of everything she's lost and everything she's still fighting for. The gavel has already fallen back in Alabama. The courtroom battle with Martell is done, at least for now. But as Melody steps into her next chapter, she realizes that true freedom doesn't come easy. It comes with scars, with whispers, with sleepless nights, and with a heart that has learned to smile through pain. Melody's move to Atlanta wasn't just about a change in location, it was about survival. After years of constant conflict, endless court hearings, public humiliation, and private heartbreak, she made a choice to start over somewhere she could breathe again. Atlanta represented peace, security, and new beginnings, a place where her kids could grow without being caught in the middle of chaos. But as she quickly learned, freedom always has a cost, especially when pride and power still linger in the shadows you've left behind. The day she packed up her Huntsville home was emotional. The walls that once echoed with laughter and family dinners now carried memories of shouting matches, tears, and broken trust. She moved through each room with purpose, taping boxes, labeling items, and glancing at the children who were too young to fully understand what was happening but old enough to feel the tension. Her daughter clutched her favorite doll, her son sat quietly on the couch, and for a moment, Melody felt the full weight of being both mother and father. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about protecting Di. In the weeks leading up to her departure, the energy around the case was thick. Huntsville was buzzing with opinions, with rumors, with speculation. People whispered in grocery store aisles, on social media, in church pews, "Did you hear? Melody's leaving." Some said she was brave, others said she was running away. But Melody knew what they didn't, that peace sometimes means walking away from the noise, even if it means being misunderstood. Inside the courtroom, the air was cold and tense when the judge read the final ruling. Martell stood still, his usual confident expression replaced by disbelief and frustration. For years, he had been used to control over the narrative, control over the family, and control over how the world saw him. But that moment stripped him bare. The gavel hit like thunder, and just like that, the balance of power shifted. Melody had been granted the ability to make choices for her children's well-being, and that included relocation. The court's decision didn't make her feel victorious, though. It made her feel exhausted. She sat outside the courthouse afterward, sunglasses hiding the tears she refused to show, her hands trembling as she replayed the years that led to this. To the outside world, Melody had won. But to her, it felt like survival. Winning in court doesn't erase years of emotional battles. It doesn't quiet the late-night phone calls, the accusations, or the guilt that comes with watching your children ask why things can't be normal again. Her daughter's voice still echoed in her mind, "Mommy, why isn't Daddy here anymore?" That question cut deeper than any legal document ever could. Melody took a deep breath and reminded herself of the promise she made, that her children would grow up in peace, no matter what it cost her. And that meant Atlanta. As she loaded the final boxes into the moving truck, the street outside her Huntsville home grew silent. Neighbors peeked through curtains, reporters lingered at the end of the driveway, and even though she tried to tune it out, she could feel the judgment in every glance. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from resolve. She wasn't running, she was rebirthing. The drive to Atlanta felt symbolic. Each mile put distance between her and the past, between the betrayal, the manipulation, and the chaos. The kids dozed off in the back seat, unaware that their lives were changing forever. The skyline of Atlanta finally appeared on the horizon, glimmering under the setting sun like a promise of hope. Melody whispered to herself, "This is where we start again." The first night in the new house was quiet. Too quiet. Boxes were stacked in every corner, the smell of fresh paint filled the air, and the echoes of their footsteps made the place feel empty. But there was also peace, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She tucked her kids into bed, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the glow of her laptop. School applications, business plans, real estate papers, it was overwhelming, but it was progress. She was rebuilding, brick by brick, with determination as her foundation. Then, the phone rang. The voice on the other end was familiar, sharp, impatient, and angry. "Martell." His words cut through the calm. "You think you can just take my kids and run off to another city? You're not about to erase me from their lives. Melody's tone stayed calm but firm. This isn't about you, Martel. This is about them. They need peace, something you couldn't give. The call ended with tension that hung in the air like smoke. She stared at her phone, realizing that even miles away, Martel's shadow still lingered. It didn't take long for word to spread that Martel wasn't letting go quietly. Sources close to him said he was already talking to lawyers again, exploring options to appeal the ruling or file new motions. Friends whispered that he was determined to find leverage. On social media, his posts became cryptic, subtle jabs, suggestive captions, and half-truths aimed to paint himself as the victim. Some followers sympathized with him, but many saw through it. The world had already witnessed too much of his pattern. Meanwhile, Melody stayed focused. She wasn't just moving forward blindly, she was intentional. She surrounded herself with a tight circle of trusted friends, business mentors, and spiritual guides. She attended parenting workshops, met with legal advisors, and made sure that every step she took was rooted in protecting her peace and her children's future. But even with progress, there were hard days. Her daughter grew quieter, more withdrawn, watching every adult argument like she was storing it in her little heart. Melody noticed and felt her heart ache. One night, her daughter asked, "Mommy, are we really leaving Daddy behind? What if he can't find us?" Melody knelt beside her, took her small hands, and said softly, "We're not leaving him behind, sweetie. We're leaving the pain behind. We're going somewhere better." Tears filled her eyes, but she stayed strong. That was the moment she truly understood that motherhood wasn't just about love, it was about leadership. Back in Huntsville, Martel's frustration was reaching new heights. He couldn't accept losing control. Friends tried to reason with him, telling him to focus on himself, to move on, but he refused. "She thinks she can take my kids, move to Atlanta, and erase me?" "Not a chance," he told one friend. The anger was consuming him. The man who once prided himself on composure now seemed unhinged, pacing around, calling anyone who would listen, and convincing himself that he had been wronged. His family didn't make things easier either. Some relatives called Melody, begging her to reconsider. They said the kids needed their roots, that she was being selfish. Others crossed the line, sending threats, spreading rumors, and trying to guilt her into returning. But Melody had made her decision. She wasn't just protecting her children, she was breaking a generational pattern, one where women stayed silent, where peace was sacrificed to protect appearances. Not this time. As weeks turned into months, Melody began to find her rhythm in Atlanta. She started attending events, building her brand, speaking to women who saw her as a symbol of strength and survival. The city embraced her, and slowly, she started to smile again, not the forced smile she used to give the cameras, but a genuine one born from freedom. But just as things began to stabilize, Martel made his move. Reports surfaced that he was in Atlanta, spotted at restaurants, networking events, even around Melody's new neighborhood. To some, it seemed like coincidence. To Melody, it was clear, he was trying to reclaim control. Blogs lit up with headlines, "Martel spotted in Atlanta, is he trying to win Melody back or stir drama?" The public watched closely, and the tension reignited all over again. One morning, as Melody dropped her kids off at school, Martel showed up unannounced. Cameras from nearby parents caught the scene. He called out, "So this is your new life, huh? New city, new friends, new you. You think you can just erase me?" Melody stayed composed. "This isn't about you anymore, Martel. It's about our kids. They deserve peace." Her voice was calm but firm, the kind of tone that carried years of endurance. The confrontation went viral. Viewers praised Melody for her poise, while others called out Martel's obsession with control. That night, after the chaos had settled, Melody sat in her quiet home, writing in her journal by candlelight. The kids were asleep, the world was silent, and she poured her heart onto the page. "My children will grow in peace," she wrote. "My daughter will know her worth. My son will learn what strength looks like. This cycle ends with me." Her handwriting was shaky, but her words were powerful. While Melody worked on rebuilding her life, Martel continued plotting. He met quietly with attorneys, exploring new legal tactics to regain power. The custody battle might have been decided, but the war of pride was far from over. He began leaking small stories, trying to manipulate public sympathy. Meanwhile, Melody refused to engage publicly. She chose silence as her weapon, letting her growth speak louder than any rebuttal ever could. Atlanta was supposed to be her sanctuary, but Martel's presence made it clear that peace would require constant defense. Yet, Melody didn't back down. She turned her pain into purpose, launching new business ventures, mentoring women, and reminding her supporters that resilience is not about perfection, it's about persistence. She was redefining herself not as Martel's ex, not as a victim, but as a woman standing on her own name. Every smile she gave her children was an act of defiance. Every public appearance was a declaration that she refused to be broken. And even though the war wasn't over, she carried herself like it was already won. In the quiet moments, when the lights were off and her kids were asleep, the memories still haunted her, the betrayal, the manipulation, the nights of crying alone. But now, she saw them differently. Those memories weren't her weakness, they were her proof. Proof that she could survive anything. As Martel's legal threats loomed in the background, Melody focused on her new foundation, not just for herself, but for the next generation. She wanted her daughter to grow up knowing that walking away from chaos doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. She wanted her son to grow up understanding that strength isn't about control, it's about love, accountability, and peace. By the time the sun rose over Atlanta, Melody was already on her next move, planning, working, and living with purpose. She had found something Martel could never take from her: freedom. And though freedom came with a cost, loneliness, judgment, and ongoing battles, it was worth every tear. The story of MelodyShari's rebirth is not about escaping pain, but transforming it. It's about turning trials into testimony, heartbreak into healing, and endings into beginnings. Martel may still be fighting for power, but Melody has already claimed something far more valuable: her peace. And in Atlanta, with her kids by her side, she's not just surviving anymore. She's thriving. The war might not be over, but this chapter, this rebirth, belongs to MelodyShari, because sometimes, the most powerful act of love isn't staying and fighting. It's walking away and rebuilding your life, piece by piece, until peace feels like home again.